Okay, so we're not going to do a recording today now that we have recording YouTube and podcast. But, oh, no. By the time it goes onto YouTube, I think the music will come on. I don't know. We'll surprise everybody. But today we are going to talk about fatigue. Fatigue with Dr. Stephen Grable. Dr. Grable is in the classroom and we are going to learn and grow together. And since we're not going to dance today, we can just maybe do a little jingle in our head. We're going to get started, okay? So, hello, my listening friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have been listening in to the Lillian McDermott radio show since 2011, or maybe you just tuned in yesterday for the first time because you heard Del Bigtree was going to be on the show or in the classroom, then welcome back. But if this is your first time joining us, please know that I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening as well as my viewing friends on Facebook at Lillian's Radio Show, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, as you know, I'm always excited when a sponsor takes a stand and says, I'm going to stand right next to you. But this meeting happened by divine intervention. When I met Dr. Stephen Grable, I've shared this story before, but I just got to tell you that he stood up at a conference and he had the most bright shirt that anybody could ever wear, which was like UF colors. And he asked his question after he said he was from Jacksonville Beach, and I was at the time doing the show on the radio in Jacksonville. This is before we walked away from radio. And when I turned away and I turned back around, he had sat down in a sea of doctors, and I could not find him. And the rest of the day, I kept looking for him. And as I was leaving the conference, we almost ran into each other. And I could have licked his face at the time because I was really excited to have finally met him. And he has become a sponsor, Dr. Stephen Grable. And I'm just excited to share him with you because you can find him at Jacksonville Beach in Florida. And the location is called Complementary Care Center. And he is holistic, alternative, functional MD. And so he will work as not only an MD as a medical doctor, but as a medical detective to help you find the root cause of your symptoms, your illness, whatever it is. Or I'm not going to say yours, because the moment you claim that disease, it becomes a part of your life. So And so today I ask you the question, if there was not a pill for depression or fatigue or exhaustion or anxiety, if there wasn't a pill for your thyroid, if there wasn't a pill, how would you live your life differently? What would you do to get your health back? Now, today I told Dr. Grable that I am the poster child of what not to do when it comes to not promoting fatigue. So today I am your student, Dr. Grable, 100% your student, because we're going to talk about how to discover the root cause of fatigue. Got fatigue? Then this is the place where we're going to learn together. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Stephen Grable is here to do just that. Welcome back, Dr. Grable, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show classroom.
Hey there, Lily.
I'm excited. I'm excited because this is a topic that is dear to my heart. And I must say that there are times where, like today, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I knew that I had a long things to do, and I don't like having things on my checklist. And so let's talk about when people have fatigue, what part of their body is needing to be looked at? What is the root cause of fatigue?
Well, fatigue is a huge issue, and just about any disease can make you tired. But I've found that there are generally a few things that you can narrow it down to. The first thing, obviously, is to get a good night's sleep. And it's amazing to me, and we could spend an entire podcast just doing sleep and insomnia.
Sleep hygiene, yeah.
But let me give you just a few pointers. Studies show most people need anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And it's amazing to me how many people don't get anywhere near that. So we're creatures of habit, and we develop different rhythms. So what I always tell my patients is I'll usually do a little muscle testing with them, which is a way to sort of ask their body questions. And let's say they need 8 hours of sleep. So what I'll say is, okay, what time do you have to get up in the morning? So if they have to get up at, say, 6 o'clock, I'll say, okay, well, you're going to be in bed then from 10 till 6. And just think of that time as being gone. So that 10 to 6 is not in your mix. If you came from another planet with 36-hour days and you came to this planet, oh my gosh, how could I do it? Well, you'd have to adjust. You'd have to figure out how to juggle things, because that time you're going to be much more efficient if you take that time to get a good night's rest. So one of the things that can help, people will often complain that when they go to sleep, they lay there and their mind's just going around.
Yes.
And they're processing all the stuff. So a real simple technique is to learn how to belly breathe. And I don't know if you've ever studied this, but basically it's a singer's breath. And so it's a little hard because you can just basically see my face, but a chest breath is how most people breathe. And when you take a breath in, your chest goes up. Yep. This stimulates your adrenaline system, which is the system that just gets your mind going and gets you active and moving. A belly breath is where your abdomen goes out, and that stimulates what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the system which causes us to calm down. So when you're laying there in bed, if you learn to just belly breathe, it takes a little practice. It's kind of like riding a bike, that it's sort of like filling your belly up with air. You sit there and you belly breathe, you'll take your focus off all those things that your mind is going around about, because you can't not think about something. So in other words, I always use the analogy. If I say, don't think about pink elephants, don't think about pink elephants, don't think about pink elephants, you're going to think about pink elephants, right? So, but if you're focused on your breathing, then that will take your mind off all this other stuff that's going on. So, turn off, you don't want to be looking at your alarm clock. When you're laying there in bed, think to yourself, okay, I've got 8 hours to just lay here and do absolutely nothing and just relax. And you do that for about 3-4 minutes and you out like a light. Another tip that I started doing, and it's becoming more and more pertinent, is with all this 5G stuff, which I'm sure you've read about and heard about.
Yeah, it's scary.
So we're swimming in a sea of electromagnetic noise. So what's actually very simple is when you're ready to go to bed, you brush your teeth, get yourself all ready, and then flip the breaker switch on your breaker to your bedroom. And you'll shut off not only all the electronic devices in your bedroom, but you'll shut off the power that's in the walls, because most of us sleep with our head next to the wall, and that is affecting us, and that can really affect your sleep. In fact, I had a patient today, I ran my siren machine on him, and EMF went right to the top. So we're swimming in a sea of electromagnetic noise, and this kind of stuff can also really mess up our sleep. So those are just a couple of tips. Again, like I said, we could get into a lot of things with insomnia, but you've got to work on your sleep. So we're going to assume for the rest of our discussion that your sleep is relatively good.
Okay.
Because
go ahead. Finish up.
I was going to say, we regenerate with sleep. So if you're not getting the proper amount of sleep, I mean, you obviously start there. If you come to me and say, well, doctor, I've got this gnawing, empty feeling in my abdomen, and it's really bothering me. And I say, well, when was the last time you ate? Oh, about 3 weeks ago. Probably ought to eat something, Yeah. So anyway, so that's, you want to get a good night's sleep to start.
Okay.
You asked me a question.
I have several questions for you. First of all, you said you need between 7 and 9 hours.
Right.
I find myself waking up after 5.
Okay.
So is it possible that some people don't need as much as 7 hours?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, we're talking, bell curves and, the majority of the population,
Okay.
but there's some people, I'm very jealous of them. They can get by on 3-4 hours of sleep and they feel fine.
Yeah. Well,
did you get like 5 hours a night when you were like teenager and in your 20s and stuff? Or did you?
I always thought sleep was a waste of time. I wanted to be in the middle of everything. Going to the bathroom was also a waste of time. Excuse the pun. But I'm just, I think I may have had ADD or something. I don't know. But though I have learned to appreciate my time, my downtime. But when I was younger, I could sacrifice my sleep like that. And people would say to me, oh, that's going to catch up to you. That's going to catch up to you. But I would say that if I have 5 hours, I'm feeling like $1 million. But my husband, he can count backwards. He knows that if he's going to bed now, he's not going to get up till 8 hours later. I wish I could do that. Because in my mind, I've got so much to do and so much time to do it in. I might as well, once again, sacrifice my sleep. That's what I'm going to sacrifice. Like I told you today, I'm the poster child of what not to do today. But for the most part, I get 5 to 6 hours, but occasionally I'll get 7, maybe 8. But I'm just concerned that, we have that 7 to 9 rule. But for me, if I get 9 hours, I'm tired. Why?
Okay. So well, you're in bed more than you need to be.
Okay. And that can backfire too. Okay.
I'd say, look back, probably good ideas, look back when you were in your teens and 20s, whoever's listening to this, and you can kind of get a feel for how many hours that you need, and, strive for that. Let that be a goal for you, because chances are you're going to continue to need that amount of sleep as you get older.
Yeah, I think 7 would be perfect. I think 7 would be just like perfect for me. And the days I do get it, I'm like, wow, what happened here? So I get it. I get sleep. And the second thing I want to talk to you about was breathing. You and I, I don't know if we did this, but I know Jason and I talked about it. And I always say that breathing, I forgot how to breathe. I remember I wasn't able to sing. My voice was hoarse. Mm-hmm. And I was a soloist at the time at the church, and I was told I just couldn't sing, and I was told that if I went to a singer's speech therapist, that they would help me with my hoarseness. Uh-huh. And when I sat with her for about half an hour, 15 minutes, she said to me, as we were talking about my my hoarseness, and we were talking about that. Mm-hmm. As opposed to anything else, she said to me, you realize you haven't breathed once since you've been sitting there. And I went, excuse me? That's impossible. I've been breathing all along. The fact that I'm speaking to you and replying to you is fact that I am breathing. And she said, you're not breathing. What you are doing is, it was that chest where my chest was going up and down. Right. And that was such a teachable moment that I had to relearn how to breathe. Right. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's we breathe when we're babies, we belly breathe naturally. And at some point along the line, I don't know how it happens, whether an adult says, well, take a deep chest breath or something, and we get this idea that we're supposed to breathe, with our chest muscles going out, and that's just not the proper way to breathe. the Eastern Indians, they say all disease can be cured with the breath. So, just
Wow.
learning to belly breathe. Like I said, it's just a feel. And once you got it, you got it. You just got to practice a little bit.
Yeah, it's that purposeful breathing. Okay.
Right.
So primarily what we were addressing was sleep, and
Okay.
that sleep can cause fatigue. So is that all you want to say about sleep, or do you want to move on to the next?
No, we can move on.
Okay.
For time's sake.
Okay.
So I think the next thing, what I would do with a patient is ask them, when did your fatigue start?
Okay.
Leo Galland says, always go back to the beginning. And if you have a patient that says, well, I had mono when I was 28 and I just never recovered. Well, you could almost be assured that they really fall into the chronic fatigue syndrome group, which is a kind of separate category, which we can go into in a little bit, about fatigue. Because those people, typically it's a problem with the mitochondria, and they usually have chronic infections, and their immune system is working to cause that fatigue problem. Okay. So let's just kind of maybe put that one on the back burner just for a minute, and then look at some of the other more common things that people come in with.
Okay.
So I would say, if their sleep is good, if they don't appear to have chronic fatigue syndrome, the most common things that I find are depression, thyroid, and adrenal problems.
Okay.
Those three, and again, we're also talking about, when I see somebody, I'll check, blood count and chemistry. You want to make sure you don't miss, liver disease and kidney disease and lung problem, the basic stuff. Mm-hmm. We're assuming that that's all been cleared. That depression, thyroid, and adrenal, those take up a huge number of patients. Okay. That come in. So I think, mentioning depression, I don't like that word because it conjures up different images in people's minds. We picture this weak person sitting there eating bonbons, crying at Geico commercials, and people can't relate to that. Okay. So there's a little acronym, there's a little memory thing I learned when I was a resident many moons ago. Okay. Called SIG-E-CAPS. And this is a great way to very quickly figure out if your neurotransmitters are out of whack. Okay. So S stands for sadness. So usually most people, if you talk with them, they'll say, yeah, I've been feeling kind of blue, feeling kind of down. The I is interest. So what happens is that patients will start to lose interest in things that they enjoyed previously. That doesn't have to be a complete lack. It could be just, I don't enjoy playing golf as much as I used to. Mm-hmm. The G stands for guilt. So people that start to have these neurotransmitters out of whack, they start getting down on themselves. They kind of do this self-flagellation stuff. Yeah. E is energy, which we're kind of talking about today. So mm-hmm. That's the SIG-E part. Uh-huh. C is concentration, and concentration, I kind of lump concentration, memory together. Mm-hmm. So they just have trouble kind of staying on track. They kind of get scattered. A stands for appetite, that can be up or down. P is psychomotor. That's what I call my butt stuck to the couch. So people feel like they got Velcro on.
Wearing that Velcro in your pants.
Yeah, well, especially if you stay up, get up at 2:00 in the morning, you'll have that. Yeah. Then the last S.
And what's the P again?
Psychomotor. So it's sort of like your get up and go, got up and went. Okay. And then the last S is sex drive and sleep. So let me go over those again. So SIG-E-CAP. So we have sadness, interest, guilt, energy, concentration, memory, appetite, psychomotor, sleep. So your sleep can either sleep less than normal or sleep more than normal. Mm-hmm. And then sex drive goes down. Okay. An interesting thing about libido, because if a patient comes in and says, man, I'm having the best sex of my life, you can just about rule out almost everything, because that's the first thing to go. Because you think about it, evolutionarily, do we want to be procreating if we're not in optimal health?
Correct.
So that's one of the first things to go. So you don't have to have all of those vegetative signs to be, quote, depressed. But most people, when you talk about that, they start to get a feel that yes or no, that seems to be a factor for them.
Okay. Okay, so with all the Ziggy Cap, which I love how I'm an acronyms girl. I love acronyms, so Ziggy Cap's going to stick with me. When you're dealing with this, sadness, there are times where we need to process whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But does that necessarily mean if you have all of this, that the person is depressed, rather than saying perhaps maybe there's some past trauma they don't want to deal with, or maybe emotionally, maybe they're feeling entitled or victimized themselves? Do you also look at that too?
Yes, and yes.
Okay.
So they can all be, they all can be. There's lots of things that can mess up your neurotransmitters. Just not getting enough rest.
Yeah.
People can start to feel down and depressed. Your boss verbally beats you up. You have trouble with your spouse. You're, any number of things. You can get an illness that you're having trouble shaking. And the thing that can also confuse the whole picture is you can have more than one thing going on. Mm-hmm. Your thyroid can be down, your adrenals can be stressed, your neurotransmitters can be out of whack. You can have multiple things going on affecting your energy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in a situation like that, it's time, like I say all the time, take out your soul shovel and dig until there's only truth. And one of the things I want to say about that is that many people don't want to deal with it because they know it's going to be painful. But they take it with them everywhere they go.
Right.
Dragging it like a 50-pound sack of potato. Mm-hmm. I'm a type of one and done. If I'm feeling sad, I sit with my sadness. Uh-huh. And I journal about it. And, it's not that I put pressure on myself to be a self-cleaning oven, but as a life coach, I better know what I talk about, So do you advise your patients to sit and journal, to kind of get to the root cause of what's causing their Ziggy Cap?
Oh, yeah.
Tell them to bust the cap.
Absolutely. That's well, there's an old adage in depression that it's anger turned inwards. And it's interesting how many patients have a lot of unresolved anger that they haven't dealt with. And, you hit on something. There's a concept in medicine called secondary gain, where sometimes people, if they've been ill for a while and they're getting, I always say sometimes you're sitting with a patient, you can start to hear the violins play, mm-hmm. that you have to kind of help them to see that, because they're really not going to get well if they're getting rewarded for being sick. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow. And it's not that people wake up in the morning saying, gee, I just want to feel awful today so I can get sympathy, but they have to become aware so they can start to shake some of these tendencies. And another one that's also real common is self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. People, it's amazing. We all do it, I think, sometimes to some degree, is we subconsciously beat ourselves up or shoot ourselves in the foot. And you can kind of get a little hint about that if a doctor or someone recommends something that can help you. If you kind of automatically find yourself poo-pooing it and just, that, whatever. Sometimes that can be a little clue that you may be not subconsciously really looking for an answer, that you're doing things to kind of keep yourself stuck. You want to get unstuck.
Well, I am a big, if you could take one word about the theme of the classroom is responsibility. And I want to encourage everybody to go to whenyouneedafriend.com to my responsibility page. And there are 4 questions that you ask there's no blame, no shame, no fault, no duty. It's all about facts. No different than 2 + 2 = 4. Right. You wouldn't say, I can't believe 2 + 2 = 4. You just wouldn't argue it. and you go through the 4 questions, and I've done enough, lessons on that you can always go back, or we can do another if you guys want to, but go answer these questions as it is what it is, without any emotion. And by the time you're done, whoever did the "done somebody wrong" song on you, by the time you're done, you feel empowered because you choose it, to learn from it, to grow from it. And there's a difference in perspective when you know that whatever you're going through has purpose, even if at the time it doesn't feel that way, you can endure it a little bit better. And so that is why I just wanted to add that to it. And yes, you ask the question to that patient that has chronic fatigue, when was the last time you felt, or when was the first time you felt this way? And they can go back to their childhood. The same thing happens with victimization. The same thing happens. It's our relationship with, how was I rewarded being sick? And in my family of 5 kids, whoever was sick got rewarded. They got all the attention.
Right.
I didn't want to be sick. Because 1 out of 5 kids, you're out on your own type of thing until you're sick. And then all the nurturing. And so sometimes we go back because we need that nurture. I'm not saying that everybody who's sick has that, but please, I am saying that sometimes we just need to sit with, why am I sabotaging myself? Why am I not happy today when everything is good? So, okay. So
along those lines, I'm sure you're familiar with Carolyn Mace.
Yes.
So for those listeners who've never heard of her, her last name is spelled MYSS, and Carolyn is a medical intuitive who Norm Shealy, who's a well-known neurologist, had worked with her for many, many years. I don't know if you know the story, but he would call her up and say, "Carolyn, I've got, Betty Sue in my office. Tell me about her." And Carolyn would go, "Okay, I got her." And she'd start to read her at distance, and she was 90% on target. So she's the real deal. But she's written a lot of books, and one of her books is Why People Don't Heal. And that's a very interesting read. So that kind of dovetails with our conversation here, that if any of the listeners are finding themselves kind of stuck or whatever, she can help you to elucidate.
Yeah.
And she also teaches about how to reclaim your power. So you mentioned about being a victim. You see, when you're a victim, you've given away your power. And so when you reclaim your power, and that occurs for example, with forgiveness. If you can dig deep and forgive, although that may seem like that's being weak, it's actually just the opposite. You actually feel quite empowered when you do that.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I think that's also a little pearl there.
And that is, my listening and viewing friends, what I love about Dr. Grable. It's not just about the going through the checklist to make sure that he knows what pill to give you, but it's really listening until, and you were the one that said that to me, that sometimes you just listen to your patients and before the end of the conversation, they tell you exactly what's wrong with them.
Right. Exactly.
Because you listen. And so for those of you who have any questions for Dr. Grable today, if you type in a Q, we will ask your question. But, sometimes I'm so happy to see you, Brianna and Jenny and Kimberly Kirshner and Robert and Bonnie. It's so nice to see you all. But this is your classroom too. And for those of you who are watching that I didn't mention your name, the only way I know that you're on is if you say something, because I really can't tell if you're on or not. So if you can type in where you're from, or if you have a question, just type in a Q and we'll read your question and Dr. Grable will respond. So I want to encourage you to, Dr. Grable is a sponsor, and as a sponsor, I want you to support my sponsors the way they are supporting the classroom. So if you want to learn more about Dr. Grable, or if you want to take the drive and see Dr. Grable, he was very instrumental with me in finding that I did have breast implant illness. And, and he studied right alongside with me and, made sure that I did everything that I needed to do. Doctors like that are so hard to find and worth the drive. So I want to encourage you to go to Jacksonville Beach, and just hang out by the beach if you want to. That's good for your adrenal glands, right? And your fatigue, to sit by the beach, right?
Absolutely.
You could call Dr. Grable or email him. What is your email, Dr. Grable?
It's DRSGRABLE@gmail.com.
Okay, so it's
DRS
S
GRA
BLE
at Gmail.
gmail.com. And
Right.
he's really good at responding to your emails as well. So there's so many different ways that you can heal. There's a reason why you're watching today. And perhaps maybe it's time to say, you know what? Yes, I was victimized back then, but why would I continue being victimized every day by just the thought of what
Right.
happened? And releasing that and letting go, it's unbelievable. So Brooklyn Marie, hello from Ontario, Canada. Come on down to Jacksonville. Here we go. Just trying to watch for a while. I cook for the kids. Oh, that's okay. You can watch it later. That's the beauty of the Lillian McDermott radio show classroom. You can watch us at any time. But it's always nice to be a part of the audience because you get to ask all the questions you want. But just make sure you put in a queue. Okay, so we talked about sleep. We've talked about fatigue, self-sabotage, and the emotional aspect of feeling fatigued. What else can you tell us when it comes to, you go to a doctor, you feel fatigued, and they all of a sudden start writing a pill for your thyroid, you start writing a pill for being just fatigued. So what do you do? What are the things you look at, Dr. Grable?
Well, a couple other important things are thyroid and adrenal. So thyroid is an interesting topic. The conventional physicians have been convinced that if someone comes in, they say, I'm tired, or they're overweight, they'll check what's called a TSH, which is a blood test. And if the TSH is in the normal range, they'll say you're fine, even though you may have all the classic signs of low thyroid. So you can tell if your thyroid's down because you're tired. You'll start to see changes in your hair, skin, and nails. You can start to lose the outer eyebrows. Your hair can start to thin. Your skin gets kind of like the Pillsbury Doughs boy. Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm like feeling all these symptoms.
Yeah, it's constipated, cold. That's another people, they just feel cold. And I describe it, it's like your motor is running slow.
Okay.
So what I do is I check free T3 and free T4, which is the actual thyroid hormones. And then depending on what those show, I'll usually either try the patient on a low dose of natural thyroid or put them on some supplements that can support the thyroid, depending on how they want to go with this. And then see how they respond. Because the lab tests, they're kind of a rough guide, but they're not absolute. And I've had many patients who've had even the free hormone levels were in the quote normal range, who when I put them on thyroid really noticed a dramatic improvement and felt better. So that's how I like to approach it.
What about the uptake? Is that what you're saying? The free T3, is that the uptake?
No, I skip. I don't even bother with the uptake test.
You don't do uptake.
The free T3 and free T4, those tests measure the actual thyroid hormone. So when you do T3 uptake, what they've done is a total T3 and a T3 uptake, which gives you kind of a roundabout idea of where they are with T3. So the free T3, I haven't had insurances balk too much about covering it. It's a little more expensive, but the free T3, that's the main functional thyroid hormone. See, when you go see a conventional doc, he gives you Synthroid, which is T4, and that has to be converted into T3. And there's 30, maybe 40% of patients who have trouble clipping off that one iodine. See, thyroid hormone is actually pretty simple. It's a tyrosine backbone, which is an amino acid, and it has 3 or 4 iodine molecules stuck to it. So what your body does is takes the T4 and it clips it off to form the active T3 is what does the work. So some doctors will prescribe just T3. Some will prescribe T4 plus T3. I usually use like Armour, a desiccated thyroid that literally mimics human thyroid. It's an interesting thing. Pigs seem to have the exact same thyroid as people. They've tried it with beef. It doesn't work. If you think about it, they use, pig valves for hearts. So there's a lot of homology there. In other words, our tissues seem to be very close to pigs.
Yeah, and in the Bible it says that we shouldn't have animals with hooves, feet. That they're unclean or whatever. But the pig is the closest to human DNA, and that's why we're able to do all that. So when we're eating pork, and when I say we, I mean when anybody else eat pork, it's like cannibalism. It's like we're eating our friend, our little, Charlotte, the pig, and
Arnold Ziffel.
Yes, exactly. So people don't realize that it's like cannibalism.
Right.
And, so how are you enjoying your little brother here?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. And when you said the pig, because I'm on Nature-Throid, that's what I use is Nature-Throid.
Yeah, that's the variation of that.
Is that pig?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Because
those are desiccated. The general category is desiccated thyroid. And under that, you've got, Armour, Westroid, NP thyroid, Nature-Throid.
Yeah, because someone said it was a horse urine. And I'm like, what?
No, they're getting mixed up with Premarin, which is the horse estrogen.
You see, there's so much stuff out there that we don't know. Okay, so when it comes to the thyroid, that's basically, is that even if their thyroid looks like it's normal, if they're having the symptoms, then perhaps just a little bit to just tweak it.
Now, if they're under a lot of stress, and of course, this is again one of the biggies, then you've got to address the adrenals first. And we were talking about that a little bit this before the show, is in the last couple of years, even a lot of natural medicine practitioners have come out and said, oh no, we were misled, that adrenals are not the issue, that it's really the hypothalamus and this kind of thing. But if you look at the studies, a lot of these studies were done with isolated cortisol blood levels done in the morning. And if you do 24-hour adrenal saliva test where you check cortisol at 612 and 612, you'll start to see patterns that you're not going to pick up if you're just doing an isolated blood test here and there. And I think that's why a lot of the literature has gotten confused or is going down the wrong path. Because there was an endocrinologist named McJeffries who wrote a book called Safe Uses of Cortisol. And McJeffries discovered years ago that people who had a lot of adrenal suppression did very well with some low-dose hydrocortisone. So I've done a lot of these, and you'll see various patterns. Normally, it should be high in the morning and then gradually come down. And so you can see all kinds of different patterns with that. So if someone looks like their adrenal glands I've had patients that just been flatlined. I mean, they couldn't even their levels wouldn't even get up into the normal range at all.
Wow.
Those people, you've got to address their adrenals first. Because if you give them thyroid before you address the adrenals, you're going to make them worse. And
how do you address the adrenals?
So there's a few different, obviously, if you can address stressors, which people have, that's, job one. Vitamin B5, pantothenic acid is something that anyone could try. It's completely safe. And that can often help the adrenals. Okay. We'll use adaptogens like ashwagandha, rhodiola. There's a number of them in that family that can help support the body. In patients, I use homeopathics that often can really help. And then in patients, if they really are kind of flatlined, then I might offer them some low-dose hydrocortisone for a while till we kind of get their bodies, back and doing a little better. And once that happens, then you can come back with the thyroid if necessary.
Very good. Very good. And are there certain foods that become stressors too?
Well, you want to stay away from processed food. I mean, we all hear this all the time.
Yeah.
And especially the grains, there's more and more coming out. Joe Mercola wrote probably one of the original books on, he wrote the no grain diet years ago. Joe's ahead of the curve. But grains are probably one of the first things to try out of your diet and see how you feel.
Rice?
Because rice isn't quite so bad, but your wheat.
Oh, okay.
Your wheat products, those kind of things. Pure oatmeal should be okay.
Okay.
If it doesn't have, but your gluten-containing grains, wheat, barley, rye, those kind of things. Corn, corn is a grain. A lot of people think corn's a vegetable, but it's actually a grain. And of course, today, everything has corn in it. And wheat, of course, is ubiquitous. So that can help a lot. And then, of course, sugar. I don't know if we've ever discussed this. They've done studies in rats where they got them hooked on IV cocaine and they offered them sugar and they chose the sugar over IV cocaine.
Isn't that amazing?
So
yeah,
sugar is very addicting,
Yeah.
So if you just do those two things and then, in terms of diet, keep it simple. Fruits, greens, vegetables.
Okay.
You don't have to complicate it. You can get plenty of protein from your greens. Did I say grains? I meant greens. It's a Freudian slip. But fruit, greens, and vegetables. And if you're craving meat, you can have some meat. That's pretty much what I teach.
Yeah.
But keeping away, if you can cut out the processed stuff and sugar, just those two interventions are huge. That can make a huge difference for you.
That's good. That's good. And so I noticed that, yesterday we talked about vaccine safety. And is that something you traditionally look at in people that are getting many vaccinations, like the flu shot or the pneumonia shot? Or can you add anything to that and why you would look at that as something that could cause a stress on the body?
Do you have a few hours?
Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll do another show on that one. Okay.
Well, I took, and to any of your listeners, if they're interested, drop me an email and I'll be happy to send you. I took Suzanne Humphrey's book, which is, I'm sure, over 400 pages, and distilled it down to about 27 pages of condensed notes. Then I took Richard Moskowitz's book, which is an equally incredible tome. That actually, I couldn't get it below about 60 pages. Mm-hmm. But when you really start researching vaccines, you'll realize that we have been sold a royal bill of goods.
Yeah.
And she has Humphreys, you can go to her site and you can download her Kindle book free.
Wow.
And she has all the graphs of all the infectious diseases. And whether you're looking at smallpox, any of the different things, the measles, whooping cough, they were all on their way out when vaccines were introduced. And in fact, smallpox, there was a spike of smallpox right after the introduction of the vaccine. So we really, truly don't need these things. Now, I have to legally suggest that you just get yourself educated and then make an informed choice.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and tell you not to do it.
Oh, no. And
I'd like to stay in practice.
And they're trying to get that out of your hands. They're trying to make everybody force vaccination. And that's where we need to really wake up and say, hey, listen, if you want to get vaccinated, that's fine. Get vaccinated. But if I choose not, it doesn't matter. If you're vaccinated, if I get sick, it shouldn't matter, because you're vaccinated. So it just doesn't make sense to me at all. And and instead of showing facts, what they've done is they've turned you against the other person. And yesterday we had a conversation with Del Bigtree, and I wanted everybody to be courteous and consider being critical. And we could have talked for like 3 or 4 hours as well, because but there are other things that we do to assault our body. And so chemicals, pesticides, all those things, right? Those are all things that we are doing to ourselves to sabotage our body.
Yeah, we're swimming in a sea of chemicals. On my Syra machine, which we talked about before, It's kind of like a biofeedback device. Most people have anywhere from 8 to 10 different categories of chemicals, heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides. So that's why, try and eat organic food and don't spray in your house. Try to keep your chemical exposures as low as possible, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Let me just mention a little tidbit for my listeners.
Okay.
I was at a meeting, Diedrich Klinghardt, who's anybody who's done any reading has heard of Diedrich. He's a brilliant German guy. And he was talking about HOCl. And HOCl is a derivative of salt. It has a hydrogen, oxygen, and chlorine molecule in it. But it's not chlorine in the sense of what we think of Clorox or those kind of things. It's actually a very safe molecule that works well as a disinfectant. Mm-hmm. And I just bought a little machine. It just arrived yesterday. I haven't gotten it out yet. It's about this big. And you can actually make your own HOCl with just distilled water and salt.
Oh, wow. And
then you can also use a potassium blend to make a degreaser. So I use this, I'll spray this HOCl around when I want to just disinfect things. And the degreaser will be really nice for cleaning. And these things they become totally innocuous. They're totally safe.
Wow.
And chlorine and all these toxic chemicals that we're using.
Wonderful, wonderful. I want to let you know that if you have any questions for Dr. Grable, just type in a Q and write your question, and we'll be more than happy to read it. For those of you who are listening on podcasts or watching later on YouTube, you're welcome to join us in the classroom on Facebook Live at Lillian's radio show. That's where you can find us. You can go to whenyouneedafriend.com and just click on to all the different ways that you can follow, like, and share and subscribe. Do all that. But I ask that when you go there, check out my sponsors page, because without my sponsors, there would be no class. And we all get to enjoy the information. And you get this information and it's free. And so because of our sponsors, you can listen to this classroom, but there's always room to grow. We want to go to that next level. So I want to encourage all of you to become also students of the class, an enrolled student where you too can help out. But check out my sponsors like Dr. Grable, and we have Keep Me Safe Organics, talk about keeping the body away from synthetic or toxins. That's why I only use Keep Me Safe Organics, and you get discounts. So check it out. Get discounts and all that. Liberty Health Share that I work with as well. That you get to go to wherever you want. It's even better than insurance. First Alternative Care, of course, Dr. Stephen Grable, the pharmacy, and Live Longer Medical. These are all people that have come together, groups, organizations that have come together and said, we want this information out there and we're going to support you. So figure out how you can support my sponsors the way that they are supporting the classroom. And as always, you can reach out to Dr. Grable at 904-247-7455. When you become a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com, you get a weekly blog that tells you who's going to be in the classroom and how to get a hold of them. You just have to click it and it takes you right to their website. And so that's why it's so important that you become a subscriber as well. And that way you know who's going to be on, and the class is sent to you. The show is sent to you, whether it's a YouTube or you subscribe at YouTube or the podcast. So we're in it together, and there's so much to learn, and there's so many other past shows. So if you want to hear Dr. Grable and other topics that we've had, you can go either to YouTube or to the podcast, or you can go, and that's iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and all those. So I think it's radio.com. So there's so many different ways. to get our health back and be responsible and walk away from this victimization that is leading us nowhere. Okay, so Dr. Grable, I know we're getting close to the end, and there's just so much to talk about fatigue. Let's go with the highlights here, because we're just dipping our toe today.
Not to interrupt you, but one of the things I want to make sure that we get out there, because some of your listeners may be suffering with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I think they're probably saying, gee, is there anything I can do?
Yes.
We talked briefly before we started the podcast, is that I was reviewing a 2018 symposium on chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis. They used to use the acronym CFS/ME, and they've since dispensed with the ME because they've realized that a lot of these patients don't have muscle pain and they don't have encephalitis type thing. So now it's been really categorized as chronic fatigue syndrome. And at the end of the symposium, they basically said, well, typically all your labs are normal and antivirals don't work and this doesn't work and that doesn't work. So sorry, Charlie. So I thought that's kind of interesting. We're finding that these patients typically have trouble with their mitochondria. You may have heard about these little powerhouses of the cell. You've got these little organelles, little microscopic things in the cell, anywhere from 200 to 2,000 per cell. And these are the little guys that make ATP energy. There are several things that you can take that are safe, won't break the bank, that can help your mitochondria to not only create new ones, but help protect the ones you've got. So many of you have heard of CoQ10. So what I would suggest is, if you're suffering with CFS, and you kind of know that, we talked about this earlier, if you had somewhat of a flu-like illness, or let's say you had a car accident, or you had something where there was a major event and you've just been wiped out ever since, then that's very likely that that's playing a role here. So CoQ10, what you want to do is you want to get a fully reduced ubiquinol CoQ10. And in the dosing, there's really no toxicity I know of with CoQ10. Probably its biggest toxicity is cost. But you want a fully reduced CoQ10 and take anywhere from 100 to 400 milligrams a day of that.
How do you know, with vitamin C, you've taken enough when you get stomach upset or diarrhea?
Yeah, you just kind of experiment.
Okay.
Yeah, you shouldn't have any side effects with it. And it's, like I say, to take more than 400 a day, it's going to get somewhat costly. But there is an interesting compound with the abbreviation PQQ, and that's purinoquinone, which is a mouthful. It's found in a few different foods, but 20 milligrams of that a day can really help, along with the CoQ10, to help your mitochondria. So that's something you could order online, get your health food store, whatever, we carry it. A third one is alpha lipoic acid. We carry one called Allomax. It is a pharmaceutical grade that's 600 milligrams twice a day. If you try those three things, and you could also try creatine, that's another one that's been studied. You may have heard like these weightlifters do creatine loading. But CoQ10, PQQ, ALA, and creatine, those four things could do a lot that you could try, and then give it a couple of months.
And what is ATP energy?
That's adenosine triphosphate. That is the little powerhouses that your body makes to provide you with energy. So your body literally runs on ATP. And people that have, chronic fatigue syndrome, we believe that they really have mitochondrial dysfunction, that their mitochondria are really not operating. And, there's a tie-in with all this CFIDS, which is a chronic inflammatory problem, or I should say SIDS. That alone could be a whole podcast. But inflammation appears to tie in with all this stuff. So if you're eating a good plant-based diet, that's going to really help to keep your inflammation down, which also will come back and help your mitochondria to work better.
Okay.
But those are four things that you can try,
That's
if you feel
great.
like you fit in the CFS category, that you're not going to hear from your regular doctor, that you could certainly try.
So the mitochondrial, you're saying that chronic fatigue syndrome is the mitochondrial issues with the mitochondria. So the things that we do, is that the same to sabotage our mitochondria, the eating processed foods, the not sleeping, and that could, what else are we doing to cause that to?
Well, stress, toxicity, you hear this term oxidative stress. Your mitochondria, and it's a little bit confusing, and I don't want to get off in the weeds, but you need a certain amount of oxidation to break down your food. It's called beta oxidation. So like most things in life, there's a polarity, there's a balance that occurs. They call it redox signaling. There's a balance between reduction and oxidation. Reduction is where you take in electrons, and oxidation is where you lose electrons. So there's a flow, a natural flow that occurs that provides health. Most people, they're losing their electrons because of stress, pesticides, all these things. And so their body tends to start breaking down. In fact, we think that oxidative stress is a big part of the aging problem, if you will. So berries are a simple answer to that. Your blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, they're essentially high in electrons. So those would be some simple, have smoothies or what have you to help boost that.
Very good. And so am I hearing you say that the mitochondrial, the little tentacles that they have, can they grow back and we can reverse?
Yes. You can regenerate mitochondria. And that's how I believe we can get our health back, is by helping these things. You have to reverse the original problem. If you keep engaging in certain behaviors, then it's going to be that much more difficult to try to heal. But if you start turning change your diet and try some of these nutrients, you may find yourself really starting to feel a lot better.
This is really good. I really have enjoyed this topic, because I think I've taken lots of notes today. I don't know if you guys can see this. I am a student in the classroom, just as you are, all of you. And so this is always so eye-opening whenever, sleep has always been an issue. And after having the breast implant illness, which could also be a reason why people are having problems sleeping, the toxicity in my body now, Dr. Grable, I guess I'm going to go into a consultation with Dr. Grable. My body now it feels like, I need to adjust again, all my hormones, maybe have my TSH, all my thyroid checked, to see if maybe that's why I'm waking up at 2:00 in the morning, or ready to work and doing all those things. I think that my body is now getting rid of these toxins and going, hey, you're taking too much thyroid medication, or hey, you're doing this. And I'll wake up hot, and I don't wake up hot. And so there's so many things that are happening in my body now that my body doesn't have to worry about fighting all the toxins. That I think I need to have a 56,000 mile checkup. You can do that.
So we can do that.
It's 1 mile, 1,000 miles for every year of my life. So it's time to repair. And, Dr. Grable, thank you so much. I want to mention again that Dr. Grable is available for you. If you want to email Dr. Grable, you can go to drsgrable@gmail.com. So it's DRS as in Stephen, Grable, GRABLE @gmail.com. Or you can call if you want to schedule a visit. It's 904-247-7455. There's strength in numbers. I think one of the things that I love is like-minded people. I hang around everybody. I love everybody. There's certain things that I just can't stand the energy, and I kind of stay away from that. But, whether you believe exactly as I do or don't, it doesn't matter. As long as we have something in common, that's what makes the world go around, is finding that commonality. Grab a bunch of your friends, make a commitment to take your health back, and have an accountability field trip to Dr. Stephen Grable's office, where you guys can work together, hold each other accountable, and start measuring the tentacles of your mitochondria coming back. as you start changing your life. Dr. Grable, thank you so much for everything that you do. And I'm looking forward to going back and getting my numbers and spitting into a cup and doing all that stuff that I need to do to get my health back. And so I want to thank all of you, Barbara and Brooklyn and Kimberly and Jenny, and let's see who else is here, Brianna and Robert and Bonnie. And for those of you who joined in but didn't say you were joining in the classroom, I am always grateful, always here waiting for you. And one last word, Dr. Grable, is there anything you'd like to add before we end our broadcast today?
Yeah, one last thing, you kind of touched on it, is also be sure to have your doctor check your hormones. If you're premenopausal and have kind of stuff, or if you're in menopause, because the hormones, that's another one of those things that could be huge in terms of helping you feel better.
Well, interesting that you would say that, but with the hormone issues, that could be also toxicity in the body. All the toxins could cause those hormones to be out of whack too. There's so much. So that's why I love that your MD is medical detective as well as medical doctor. So thank you so much, Dr. Grable, for everything you do. And I am looking for, I think our next conversation was going to be on sleep, or it's going to be on, what did we decide it's going to be? We'll have to talk about that.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So till next time, till we meet again, I am just so grateful that all of you tuned in today, and know that all these broadcasts are available to you to watch at any time. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and until we meet again. We'll see you now. We'll see you. Say bye-bye, Dr.
Good night.